there, this is Robin Andrews, and this is a video about Codewars. Now, Codewars is a great way to get practice with lots of different programming languages. I'm going to be focusing on Python, and let's just dive in and see how it works. So, if you navigate to codewars.com, maybe by doing a Google search or just typing it in, then I'm going to choose Python as my language that I want to learn. Now, I have to pass this initiation before it will let me log in or sign up. So if you look at this code, you'll see there's a couple of problems with it. First one is that the function isn't obviously being called, but that isn't the issue here, because the way this platform works is all your functions get called by tests running in the background. So the actual problem they're looking for here is that a times b doesn't really mean anything on its own. We need to return it. Okay. Once we've done that, we can submit. Okay, and it's done some tests in the background and it said we've passed. So now we can sign up. Okay, so let's choose an email that I haven't already used with Codewars. So I think that one's free. Call myself Robin 149 maybe. Let's see if that works. Okay, so it's let me in. So I won't bother saving that because I'm not really going to be using this account. I've already got my own Codewars account, but this is to show you that important part of the process of signing up. A lot of students stumble at that first obstacle. So let's say I'm a mid-level developer, but I don't want anything in terms of mail. Okay, so let me just give you a bit of context here. So first of all, we've got the level we're working at. It's giving me a 6th Q challenge. Okay, now 6th Q is actually a little bit tricky for beginner programmers. You're much better off doing 8th Q until you're really comfortable. So it goes from 8 down to 1, 1 being master. Right? So rather than accepting the default challenge or the default kata, by the way, kata is a karate form. It's like a sequence of moves that you practice, like a little mini form. But the idea has been taken over into coding. So what you should do is go to kata here on the left, right? And then choose 8th Q for difficulty. And as I've only selected Python as my language, they'll all be Python ones, I guess. But if you wanted to choose specific languages, you could choose Python, or JavaScript, or PHP, whatever it is you're learning. Okay, so you can see here that on the 8th Q Python ones, this has actually been ticked, this multiply one. That's the one we did for the initiation at the beginning. Okay, so I'm not going to look at that one again. Let's just look at, is it even? That's a classic challenge. Okay, so it gives you a description here on the under the details tab. So in this kata, we're passing a number into a function. Your code will determine if the number passed is even or not, and it needs to return either true or false. Now, I will say, if you don't know about functions, you're not really going to be able to do this. Okay, so either use this as like a crash course in functions and just kind of follow what I'm doing and catch up, or go and do some preliminary learning on functions in general. Okay, because they're like the foundation of how this whole thing works. So that said, let's choose that one. So we click on train. Okay, now let me just talk you through a little bit what we got here. So you've got your instructions on the left. You've got a stub, that's like just the function signature here, uncompleted, just with pass in it. And our job is to fill out this function so that all of these tests pass. Okay. Now don't worry about these. The syntax of them isn't your problem, but the principle is, which is, we're calling a test and it's saying assert equals is even 0, true. So what it's saying is, we expect the result of calling is even. This is on line 6 in my tests. Okay, maybe I'll just zoom in on that. Okay, does it help? Yeah. So on line 6 of my tests, we expect the result of calling is even. That's the function we're writing. Okay, with the value 0 as the argument. We expect the return value to be true. Okay. And we also expect, if we call is even with 0.5, we expect the return value to be false, etc. Okay, so if we call it with 1, we expect the result to be false. Okay, so what happens is we fill in our code, and then these tests get run when we press the test button, and it will check that all of these are in fact equal. So just reset the zoom. Maybe zoom in more and more. A couple of levels. There we go. That's probably about right. So we need to check for even. Now there is a classic way of doing this, which if you don't know, then this is a good time to learn it. Now I haven't actually read any of the details about whether the numbers may be positive, negative, or floats. Floats are considered uneven. Okay, so that's important information. And we'll come to that later, but let's just do the basic thing first. So the basic way of testing for evenness is if in mod 2, so modulus 2, you need to know about the modulus function for programming. It's used in lots of different ways. It's the remainder on division. So if you take 23 and you divide it by 2, you get a remainder of 1. Yeah? You get 11 remainder 1. Whereas if you take 24, then you get 12 remainder 0. And so you're always going to get this alternating pattern of 1s and 0s. So this is how we test for evenness. So if n mod 2 is 0, that's the same as saying it's an even integer, then we can return true. Okay. Else, that means it's odd, right? Return false. Now there's probably going to be a problem with floats here, so we'll come to that in a minute, but this is the basic solution. Okay, so it's done 10 tests and they've all passed. So they're the ones that we've got here. So that's okay. So I guess doing the modulus function on a float is automatically returning false. It's not saying it's true, so it's by default, it's going to be false. So hopefully you understand that. Like I say, if you don't understand how modulus works and how to test for evenness in general, then that's a little bit of preliminary research you should go back and do, really, because this is then taking that knowledge and putting it in the context of trying to pass some tests. Okay, or pass a cutter. So we've run the tests. Now when we attempt it, as well as these tests getting run, there's also a whole bunch of other tests. And you see here they've done 100 in the background. And some of them are random and some of them are coded by the cutter author. And they all passed, okay? So my code was solid, apparently. So then the interesting bit, you submit it. That means you get the, what's the word, the honor points for submitting it. They have this honor system. Excuse me. But also it gives you the opportunity to see other people's solutions. So you can see here, I did quite a long-winded solution compared to this one, where you can just return n mod 2 is equal to 0. And the reason you can do that is that n mod 2 is equal to 0 is an expression that evaluates to either true or false. So if you understand how that works, great, do that. If not, do this, which is exactly the same as what I did. And they're kind of ranked in terms of best practices and sometimes like cleverness, because some of them, you know, some algorithms, especially when you get to more tricky levels, you really have to get creative about how you're going to solve it, okay? But that's basically how it works. So do loads of them, okay? And like I said, don't accept the default one. If I did next kata, after doing that, it's probably going to give me a 6. And if you're just starting out, 6s are going to, you know, you're going to be pulling your hair out. So you're better off going to kata over here on the menu, and then going to 8th queue, and then choosing one that you think looks interesting. In a way, it's good not to be too fussy, because then you might kind of, you know, find a way around the holes in your knowledge. So sometimes it's good just to choose the first one that it gives you. And if you don't know how to do it, then this is your opportunity to learn how to do it. Okay, so there it is. Hopefully that was helpful. That's Codewars for you. I suggest you do loads of these katas and you will bring your programming on whatever level you're at now. You'll take it a long way forward by doing these. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.